What's up, guys? Max here with some information about an update a lot of you have been looking forward to, including myself, and it's the biggest one for the game thus far, the June update for Street Fighter V. You might have remembered we did not get a proper May update for the game because they were reserving it for a giant one coming at the end of this month in June, which was the promised release date for the story mode of SF5, which many people were expecting at the launch of the game. Now, we all know Street Fighter V had its original launch date pushed early so that it can fit the Capcom Pro Tour and make EVO for 2016, but that had a huge impact on the game and its sales and its overall first impression. But the June update, with everything that is supposed to be included and everything that has been updated for Street Fighter V up until this point for the last 4 months, pretty much is what the game should have been at its launch, so let's talk about the stuff that's going to be added to SF5 coming later this month. The big one is a 4-hour cinematic story mode. I think the initial impression that this was given off was that it was going to be about 2 hours, but even the Capcom guys are guesstimating that it might be 3 to 4. They could be being generous, but just based off the early preview that has recently gone up on the internet, this doesn't look too bad. I'm not super into story modes unless they're good. If you want to put a story mode into a fighting game, at least has to be interesting and do something with the characters and give the characters things to do. So I'm kind of happy with what they're doing so far. Just off the creepy intro alone, I was already kind of hooked and I want to see what's next. Is this going to fix Street Fighter V, though? Because a lot of people were presuming that this is going to be when Street Fighter V is going to blow up again. It's going to be when this game actually has its moment in the sun, because Street Fighter V's launch was mostly spent in the dark with a whole bunch of angry people. And while updating the game and adding all this stuff is going to be an extremely good thing, especially for the people that spent $60 on a very bare-bones SF5 at the start, this is for those fans. This is for all the people that spent money on the game and were expecting something at launch when they didn't get it. I think SF5 is going to have a huge road ahead of it if it wants to bring people back into the game, if not sell a whole bunch of units. That might not be happening, but at least the people that committed to spending a whole bunch of money for a unfinished game are hopefully going to be happy overall. No guarantee at this point. SF5 had a really rough launch. But one of the better things that's going to happen in this story mode is that all the characters that are going to be proposed DLC, all 6 characters, are going to be playable. This is correct. Alex, Guile, Ibuki, Balrog, Eurion, and Jury are playable characters in the story mode. Are they going to be finished? Most likely not, but this is something fairly similar that we remember with another game that came out with a story mode with playable characters that technically didn't exist yet, which was Mortal Kombat X. And on that front, we got a glimpse of a character that we had not seen at all. We've seen Jury, we've seen Ibuki in story stuff. We even saw what Balrog looked like in one of the story mode illustrations, but we have not once seen Eurion at all and what his design is going to be like until now. Holy shit, that dude looks like a Disney villain. But he's also completely dressed, which is kind of completely opposite what Eurion is. My hopes for Eurion in Street Fighter V in terms of his actual character design was that he was going to have the business suit that he normally starts with in the Street Fighter 3 series until that whole thing rips off all of a sudden. I was hoping that SF5 was going to have him in a business suit fighting, and then during V-Trigger, the suit rips off and he goes nuts. And it looks like that might actually be happening, so I'm kind of happy about that. Although Street Fighter V character designs in terms of their illustration quality compared to how they look in the game are drastically different. Like, Ken is a completely different looking character in his story mode illustrations compared to him in the game, so we'll see. I'm only hoping Eurion will have something similar to his clothes bursting off in V-Trigger to show everyone the fact that he is indeed the most nude. It looks like the store is finally going to be happening for Street Fighter V, the regular store that was going to be associated with Zenny, like the in-game money, but they're dropping Zenny completely, which is making me feel like, why didn't they just do this in the first place? My only presumption is that they wanted people to initially purchase Zenny with real money, so that they would have to spend that money only on Street Fighter characters, because you wouldn't be able to get a refund. It's the exact same scheme that Disney had way back in the day at Disneyland parks, where you had to buy Disney freaking fun bucks in the park, and they are worth a little bit more on in-park items. That was going to be essentially what Zenny was for a long time, but they've completely dropped that. So that's a win. I mean, it should have been that way the whole time. And you will be able to purchase a lot of the costumes that were available as inherent DLC pre-order stuff, like all the Ryu costumes and the Cammy and the Chun-Li costumes. They will be purchasable now for actual cash, which is going to be around $4. That seems like a lot to me, but we'll see how many people really want those costumes. And that just about does it for the June update, which is quite a bit of stuff. A lot is going to be changing with Street Fighter V, but there's no mention of balance adjustments for the characters because they're trying to keep everything as stable as possible leading up into EVO 2016, which is going to be the biggest event for Street Fighter V, maybe ever, because it's the launch of the game and it's its first giant tournament, like world tournament, so... yeah, we're going to see how that goes and how that affects Street Fighter V in the long run, because after that, we are going to be getting other stuff, including something called Extra Battle and Versus CPU, which I'm a little disappointed isn't in the June update. Apparently, adding a regular Versus CPU mode is something a lot more challenging than I would think it is, because it's not going to be arriving anytime soon, but they are talking about its inclusion later on, and they're also talking about investigating the frame delay issue that Street Fighter V has, where it has a notorious 8 frames of delay, which is about 3 more than a usual 3D fighting game. So what we can take from all of this is that at least they're paying attention, and I really wish none of this stuff even happened with SF5. I wish the game just came out with all these modes and they just delayed it until the end of June or July. I was even surprised that February was going to be the launch date for the game, and just a year before that, we barely even knew of its existence, which is kinda crazy. But it'd be a much different situation. At least this stuff is coming. Let me know what you guys think about the June update, the story mode update, and everything else for Street Fighter V. My name is Max. I'll be back with more as soon as possible, including a playthrough of that story mode. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time.